Hello everybody, this is Dr. Kevin Connors, and on this short video I'm going to explain how to read your IvyGene test, why a person would do it, what the purpose of the test is, and a reminder of what we're looking for on it. So IvyGene Lab is owned by the Laboratory for the Advancement of Medicine, or for Advanced Medicine. They are the lab that purchased the Oncoblot test. And again, the reason why they discontinued the Oncoblot test, though it was extremely accurate, it really took a PhD in the laboratory to read the test. So as they ramped up production and advertising for the test and getting doctors to use the test, the cost of actually performing the test went up. So it wasn't going to be a cost-efficient test for the patient. The price on the Oncoblot test was about twice as expensive as the current price of the IvyGene test. The IvyGene test is completely electronically computerized read, so there isn't going to be any subjective issues with the IvyGene test. The IvyGene test is also more cutting-edge genetic testing that is going to be much more exact, and it's going to be found in a lot of cancer testing going forward. So it's great cutting-edge information, and it's a great test that our patients are going to be able to take advantage of. Now, I really said there's really two reasons why a person would do an IvyGene test. Number one, they don't know that they have cancer. Maybe they have a lump in their breast and they don't want to go the medical route in getting a biopsy. So how can I confirm that this is cancer or not? Well, there isn't a lot of options other than doing a biopsy. So doing an IvyGene test, again, is simply a blood draw test. So it's non-invasive except for the blood draw. And so there's no radiation. It's not a CT scan. You're not sticking into the cancer. You're not having any risk of spreading the cancer through a biopsy or anything like that. So if a person is undiagnosed and they want to know if this is cancer, or they have cancer in the family, they just don't feel good, something's going on, their energy is run down, they may choose to do this test to confirm cancer. The other is to monitor progress, and that's what most of our patients are using it for. I have cancer. That's not a question in my mind. I've done different medical approaches. We've done chemotherapy, or we are doing chemotherapy, but I don't want to go back and do another CT scan, which is invasive because it's a lot of radiation, in order to find out if I'm improving or not. So is there a way to know if I'm improving or not without doing any invasive testing? I've always said, run the test if it's going to change the way you treat the patient. So if you're only running a test that's fairly invasive to satisfy my curiosity of whether I'm doing better or not, that's not a good reason to run an invasive test. Again, IvyGene is not an invasive test. It can give us progress, and I'll show you in a second how. And we can know if we're going in the right direction or if we're going in the wrong direction. I know there's different cancer markers out there, and there's different cancer marker tests, but a lot of people's cancer does not respond to cancer marker tests, so we can't use those as markers to know if we're monitoring progress in the right way or not. Some people with prostate cancer, the PSA can be a test that's very non-invasive. It's simply a blood test too, and we can monitor progress. But if I have colon cancer and I'm not showing a CA 125 as a cancer marker, then how am I going to monitor progress? Or other cancers as well. That's where IvyGene shines. So again, IvyGene is measuring methylated CpG islands. Now, don't confuse the IvyGene with a genetic test. So technically, IvyGene is a genetic test. It's measuring your DNA of your tumor suppressor genes and your tumor oncogenes. So in your body, you have specific tumor suppressor genes that are supposed to turn on when you have any active cancer to kill that cancer, and tumor oncogenes that are supposed to be turned off or silenced. So here in this example, here's a normal cell. If we read a normal cell and we measure these CpG islands, whether these tumor suppressor genes and tumor oncogenes are methylated or unmethylated, meaning turned on or turned off, so tumor suppressor genes should be turned on, the tumor oncogenes should be turned off. But in a cancer cell, the tumor suppressor genes will show methylated, and the tumor oncogenes will show unmethylated. That means the tumor suppressor genes are turned off. Those are the genes that are supposed to turn on your body to kill the cancer. And the tumor oncogenes, the genes that can stimulate a cancer growth, are turned on. So these are measured through the IvyGene test. That's what this test is measuring. So when we talk about doing genetic testing with a cancer patient, we're talking about something completely different. We're looking at SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, like SNPs defects on my detoxification pathway, or defects on my other pathways that can lead up to cancer. But this test is measuring specific genes, whether they're turned on and turned off, not defective. We're not talking about gene variants. We're not talking about SNPs. We're talking about, are they turned off or turned on? That's what makes this test so valuable, and it makes it extremely specific, and it makes it extremely reliable. It's got about a 92% reliability factor in the testing. So let's get to what a test is going to look like. So this is what you're going to get back from me. You're going to get, you'll see my name up here, your name will be up here. I blanked out this person's name, and this is the test number. This is what we want to look at right here, this picture right here. If a person has a score of 0 to 20, 0 to 19 actually, you're considered within the normal range. So if you already have a diagnosis of cancer, let's say you've been dealing with breast cancer, and you end up with a score of 16, hey, we are way on the right track. Now understand, if this is your first test, we don't have a baseline. So let's say you were diagnosed a year and a half ago with breast cancer, you've done some chemotherapy, now you're doing an alternative approach, and you score under 20, we're going to high five and have a party. If we score at 45, that doesn't mean it's bad either, because we don't know, maybe you were at a 65 before. So we don't have anything to compare it with. Like this person scored a 23. That means they have active cancer. There's cancer going on. I don't know what their previous score was because there isn't one. Remember, this test is a new test. It just came out in January. So it would behoove us to maybe run another test in 30, 60, 90 days to see if this person's score goes up. That means that's not good. We're going in the wrong direction. Or stays steady or goes down. That means, hey, we're going in the right direction. It's not progressing. That's the second piece of how we're going to use this test. Is the cancer progressing? Is it staying the same, or is it getting better? We want it to stay the same or get better. That means it's going to be down further to the left of the original arrow on subsequent tests. So this person scored a 23. Is that good or bad? It's not good or bad. Follow me? We don't know what their previous score was. If their previous score was a 15 and now they're at a 23, that's not good. But if you knew you had cancer, let's say this was the person's first test. We didn't know if this person had cancer previous to this test. They did not have a diagnosis, and they just had a lump in their breast, and now we ran this test. We could say, yes, we have cancer. And then we want to start a series of treatments, whatever we're going to choose, whatever that patient's going to choose, and then rerun this test and see if it improves or not. So don't be alarmed if your test is a 75, all right? It is what it is. It's the test. You could have been more than that before that. I don't know if you can be more than 75, but if you're a 55, you could have been a 70 prior to this, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. We don't know until we get subsequent testing. Now, if you have a cancer diagnosis and you're under care for cancer right now, whether it's through me or through something else, and you show an IvyGene test of less than 20, you should have a party. Now, it doesn't mean you should have a party with alcohol and eat a lot of cookies, but you should be very happy that you're in a great range. But I don't want my patients being alarmed when they get a score of 55 because we don't know what it was before. So understand that's the good and bad about this test. We have to measure it compared to subsequent tests, which mean we don't have any tests prior. We're going to measure it to tests that we're going to do in the future, and we're going to see which direction we're going. So if you've hesitated to get an IvyGene test because, well, I'm doing fine, I don't really want to get an IvyGene test, you may want to think it's good time to get a baseline. Because if we don't have any baseline for you, well, we can't go, you can't, if you don't have an initial IvyGene test, you can't in 3 months go, man, I'm feeling really cruddy. I got to know if I'm getting worse. I got to run the IvyGene test. Well, that's great, but we don't have anything to compare it to. So you need comparative tests. Remember, this is going to be a screening test. So this is going to be a marker test. So it's going to be able to measure whether we're getting better or we're getting worse, where we're at in that ebb and flow of dealing with our bodies, ebb and flow of dealing with cancer. That's the purpose of this test. So remember, there's 2 uses of this test: to confirm cancer in an undiagnosed patient and to monitor progress. And you can't monitor progress if you don't have anything to compare it to. So I do not want my patients freaking out if they get an IvyGene score of 65. We don't know if they started at a 70 2 months ago. Follow me? So whatever your score is, it is what it is. Now, I want you to be super happy if you're below 20 if you already had a diagnosis of cancer. But you can't be alarmed if you're at a 25 or a 35 or a 55 or a 65 because we have nothing to compare it to. That's why I wanted to make this video, so you understand that, so I don't have to talk you guys off a cliff when we go over your IvyGene test. So everybody's going to be required to watch this video prior to going over it. So it's going to be up on Facebook in just a couple minutes. All right, so post any comments you have on our Facebook page if you don't understand something that I went over this time. I hope this helps. Thanks.